Welcome everyone. Welcome, come right on in. My name is Carlton. I am your presenter for today, and today we're going to talk about how to find a job using LinkedIn. So here's a question. What is LinkedIn? Well, LinkedIn touts itself as the world's largest network, professional network on the internet. It's a professional network for the right job that you want to find. So today we're going to talk about 3 methods that you can use to find a job using LinkedIn. So method number 1 is to create or enhance your profile and to enable the open to work feature. Method number 2 is to reach out to recruiters. And method number 3 is to submit a value validation project to a particular company. Today, we're going to look at method number 3 of 3. And that method is to submit a value validation project to a particular company. Okay, so there are a number of steps to submit a value validation project to a particular company. Step number 1, what is a value validation project or a VVP, and why submit one? Let's talk about that. So what is a value validation project? It is like your resume on steroids, where your resume can only show so much about you. A value validation project can take that a step further and show your value to the company. Now, the reason why you need this is because your resume competes with hundreds or even thousands of other resumes for the same job. And if you don't show your value, how would your resume get noticed? Now, one thing that may happen that you need to be careful of is that if you don't show your value to the employer or recruiter, your resume could end up in the recycle bin along with other resumes. What you need to do is that you need to show your value to the employer so that you'll be noticed and they will reach out to you and say, hey, this person is valuable. That's why you want to do a value validation project. Step number 2, research the company you want to work for. Let's talk about that a little bit further. Now, before you do any value validation project, you want to research the company that you think that you may want to work for, and you do that just so you can save time. I always recommend to start with LinkedIn. Now, I want to look at a company called Your Part-Time Controller because I heard them advertising on NPR and it sounds interesting. So I'm just going to click Your Part-Time Controller here, and I'm going to press my enter button, and I'm using the search bar for that. And when it comes up, I can click on the view page. When I click on view page, it gives me information about Your Part-Time Controller. I can scroll down, I can see the posts. Oh, I can see the about section. So I'll just go ahead and click that, and I can read more about the organization. Scroll down and I can just take a look at, recent job openings, maybe some hashtags that they use. Also at the top though, I can click about the life that it has about the Your Part-Time Controller organization, about the people. I can look at videos and listen to videos that they put out and find out more about the company. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I'm looking for some kind of in or some kind of point that I can use to connect with the organization and put together something that would be valuable for them. In addition to LinkedIn, I also recommend using Glassdoor. Glassdoor is there's a free service that you can use, Glassdoor. You can find out a lot about an organization, especially you get the overall reviews, whether they're great or not great. You get them from people who have worked there. You can also look at the salaries and see what they are paying for particular jobs. You can see the current jobs that are open. And here I'm going to scroll down and I see that for a controller in Dallas, Texas, they're paying between $38K and $91K. That's a big range. Okay, you can also look at the interview sections, and some people who've interviewed with the company give feedback on what the interview is like. Also too, with the interviews, sometimes they share some of the interview questions they were asked. Also too, you can look at the benefits of the organization, or you can look at some photos. Glassdoor is a good resource for you to take a look for the organization. Now let me drill down a little bit further. I want to look at some of the reviews and let me see if they have the pros and cons here. Yes, they do. They have some pros and cons, and some of them say no cons at this time. Someone says we're growing so fast, I'm sure that we have growing pains. This may be an in for you to look at one of the cons, and then you can say in your value validation project, hey, I've worked with many organizations that have grown fast and I'm accustomed to do that. So you're looking for a pain point that you might want to present to an influencer or some kind of contact at the organization that you could speak to. And then if they're growing fast, you might be able to use that as a value validation project for yourself. So I want to say to you, yes, you can look at Google, you can look at Facebook at the organization, use LinkedIn and use Glassdoor before you do your value validation project, and you can save some time for the companies that you may want to work for. Step number 3, you want to locate company influencers. I'm going to show you a little bit about that now. So now what you want to do is locate company influencers like your C-suite executives, your CEO, CFO, CTO type of person, your managers or recruiters or talent acquisitions, and you want to share your value validation project with them to show them how valuable that you are. And if you do that, they may refer you to someone who's a hiring manager and get your resume in front of them. So we're going to go to LinkedIn and I'm going to show you how to do it. Now, ultimately, what you really want to do is that you want to find their email address so that you can dialogue by email. Yes, you have the messaging, you have a post that you can comment on, but not all people use LinkedIn regularly, but they do check their emails. So how do we do this? So right now I am in the Your Part-Time Controller LinkedIn page. And so what I want to do, I want to click on the button that says people. And when I do that, I get a list of people who work at the Part-Time Controller like Heidi and Jennifer, and let's see who else. We got Rosemary, who's a recruiter. These are all influencers who you can share your value validation project with. So if I click, for example, on Rosemary, so I'm going to click on Rosemary, and when I click on her name, then I can click connect if I want to connect with her. I can scroll down and look at her activity and click on activity, and I can see her post and I can respond to her post if I want to create some dialogue with her. However, one of the best things to do is to be able to get a person's email address. Now with LinkedIn, you really don't have access to their email address unless they're your first level connection. Let me give you an example. I'm going to go to my network, and in my network, I'm going to click on my connections. And when I see my connections, if I click on like Mary, for example, I can click where it says contact information, and the contact information, it gives me Mary's email address. But if I were to go to Your Part-Time Controller and try to find an email address of someone else, let me just keep going back. Let me try to find Heidi's email address. So if I click on Heidi and try to find her email address and click contact information, let's see, it has websites, it has a profile, but it does not show her email address because I am not a first level connection with her. So if you don't have that, then what you can do is you can just you can click on more, and then you can click on connect, and then you can request to be a first level connection with this influencer. And then when you do that, you will have their email address. But if they do not connect with you, or if you want to get a workaround, here's something that I suggest. There is a number of programs, a number of tools to be able to find a person's email address. One tool that I like to use is called Mail Scoop. This is a tool from my contact, Austin Belkak, which I'll be mentioning more about in the next step. And so in Austin's Mail Scoop, you can put in a person's first and last name, and then you can put their company address, and then they will return to you what their email address would be, and they're pretty much sure what that email address is. So if you don't have a first level contact with someone and you want to get their email address to start a dialogue, to be able to share with them your value validation project, I would suggest using MailScoop. It's free. You just have to sign up, or you can use another program or another app to try to find the influencer's email address. Step number 4, you want to create your VVP for the company. I want to show you 3 types of value validation projects that you can create for your choice company. Let's get to it. Now let me share with you 3 examples of value validation projects that I believe are the most common that corporate influencers are used to seeing. The first one is the email value validation project, where you send out an email to a corporate influencer. The second one is a pitch deck, which is just a series of PowerPoint slides that you send out. And the third one is a video that you create and then send out and share with to a corporate influencer. So let's just talk about each one of them. So the first one is an email, and here's an example of someone who goes to a company website. They search and see an article in the website, and then they do research to find additional information that could be more valuable to the company, and they share that information with the company. So your value validation project could be as simple as looking at a website, seeing an article, and doing some research and sending that to a corporate influencer. So the second one is a pitch deck, which is a series of PowerPoint slides. And in this one, here's an example of Becky sharing information about herself and her company. And she puts together a video in this pitch deck that displays why she had developed a brand. And from this, she gets a joint venture partnership with a company that's looking for someone who knows about branding. So this is her value validation project. So the third type of value validation project is a video. Now, I have a number of LinkedIn connections that are freelancers on Upwork, and they wanted to know, how do you do a value validation project that's a video that can get them more work? So what I did is that I went to Upwork and I looked for different types of advertisement they had for jobs, and I found one for a accounting consultant. So I reached out to the company after I put together my value validation project to show them a video that I understood their culture. I know their pain points. Maybe sometimes in some areas they might be overwhelmed. I didn't call it pain points, but I just said you might be disorganized or overwhelmed, but I can deal with the numbers that they're looking for. And in my value validation project, I said that I wanted to see them happy. And here I give them examples of the kind of work that I can do that matched what they were looking for. And so I gave them a series of that. And also too, I even shared some of the feedback for the work that had been done that is similar to what they were looking for. And then after that, I gave them a call to action. And what happened after that is that I was responded to, and even though the position wasn't for me, I was able to share their information with some of my LinkedIn contacts who were freelancers on Upwork. And so when they saw this validation project, they said, this is something that they can see and that they can do. And it takes a lot of work, but the response was almost immediate. Now, I showed you 3 value validation projects, but I want to share with you a blog from my LinkedIn contact, Austin Belkak. And so this was from his website, Cultivated Culture, and he did a blog that says value validation projects, a deliverable that will land you more jobs. He gives 12 examples of value validation projects. He goes through the definition of how he defines a value validation project. He gives some examples, and he walks you through some steps that you should take if you want to do a value validation project. You're not limited to just the email or the pitch deck or a video. There are other things that you can do like Facebook responses as well. So check out his article and take a look, and you can see the various and sundry types of value validation projects that you can do. And step number 5, you want to start the conversation by sending out your value validation project. Let me just show you what I mean by that. So you have done your research for the company and you have put together your value validation project, and you are ready to share that with the company influencer, whoever that is. So here is my number 1 tip before you do that. It's not about you. When you contact them and start the conversation, you're not asking them, can you find me a job, or can you connect me with someone, or here's my resume. They're used to that. They don't know who you are now. They're not accustomed to what you can do. So sometimes they get this request often, and it's like, here's another person who's requesting that. Now, when you start the conversation, you make it about them. You make it about something about the company more than about yourself. And so if a person has a non-traditional background, or if they worked on some kind of project that you can look at or talk about or refer to, then do that. Open the conversation and make it about them. Now, what Austin does is that he puts together some key points if you're going to connect with them, either by email or something else. He says, address the person by name. So usually when people get an email and it's not addressed to them personally, it may be spam. The company influencer may say, you know what, I don't know who this is or what they're talking about, and it's not making an initial connection. If somebody says, hey, Carlton, they get my attention instead of, hey, you. I'm like, who's who you? That can be anybody. The second thing is that you want to state who you are and make it personable. So make it as personable as possible. And number 3 is that you want to include some kind of flattery for them being the expert. I like to call it acknowledgement. So people like to be acknowledged or heard for something that they know how to do. So you can say, hey, I know you're the expert in this field. I want to get your opinion about something. So you can grab their attention if you make them an expert. Now, what Austin points out is that he says that from a Fast Company study, they emailed 1,000 C-suite executives, like the CEO, CFO, etc., the C-suite people, and he found that 2/3 of them respond when a subject line says quick question. So that if you do a quick question, it's like, okay, this is not going to take a lot of my time. I can look at it and respond to it. So that's his suggestion. Now, what Austin does is that he gives an example of an initial email that you can send to somebody, and he starts with the subject line, quick question, and then he goes through his spiel. You can do the same thing too. And so the thing is, the number 1 thing I want to recommend, it's not about you. Are you asking for something necessarily? You want to make it about them. That way you can start the conversation and then continue a conversation when you make it about them. So after you do these 3 different methods using LinkedIn to find the job, what are your results? Let's talk about the 3 results you're going to expect. Number 1, the LinkedIn community will see your posts and that you are open for work and will contact you. Result number 2, recruiters will reach out to you for jobs that match your experience. And result number 3, companies will respond to you instead of going through the normal hiring process because you have a value validation project. What are you waiting for? Are you going to be like the person on the left who says this is too much? Or are you going to be like the person on the right that says, let's go work? You can use LinkedIn to help you find a job. Be like the person on the right. Let's go work. Thank you very much. I am Carlton, your presenter. I hope that you will use LinkedIn to help you find a job. Thank you very much. Are there any questions?